Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the CHI Health Center in Omaha, Nebraska, and this was Monday Night Raw's go-home show for Backlash, which is this Saturday. And Monday Night Raw tonight, I thought it was a very good show. I thought this show was better than last week's, and in my opinion, this is probably one of the best Monday Night Raws of the year. Just good matches throughout the night. The crowd was, entertaining and electric. Much better than the crowd that we had last week. But tonight, we had Penta. He had taken on JD McDonagh. Sheamus made his return tonight, and he had taken on Austin Theory. We had Iyo Sky, the Women's World Champion. She had taken on Roxanne Perez. We also had Rusev. Rusev made his in-ring debut on Monday Night Raw, and he had taken on Otis of the Alpha Academy. And in the main event, the World Heavyweight Championship was on the line, where Jey Uso defended the title against Seth Rollins. But overall, Monday Night Raw, very good show tonight. One of the best Monday Night Raws of the year, like I said. And as for a go-home show, it did nothing to hype us up for Backlash. But let's jump right into the review. Monday Night Raw open up tonight with Yeet, Mr. Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso, the World Heavyweight Champion. Jey Uso made his entrance through the concourse area, and he went into, of course, the arena. Of course, he led the crowd in a Yeet, chant. So we had Jey Uso ended up coming down, yeeting his way. He got into the ring, and the crowd was chanting one more time. So I'm like, here we go, another 5-7 minute yeet entrance from Jey Uso. I'm like, how many times could they yeet? When he comes out and when he gets into the ring. Aren't you all tired of just yeeting like that for like 5, 6, 7 minutes? And I know people love it. I know people love to do the yeet, but for like 5, 6, 7 minutes, I'm like, come on. So Jey Uso got on the mic. He kept saying that he is now in your city, in Omaha. Jey Uso ended up saying that he's here. And he knows Logan Paul is here. And it's time to stand on business. So Jey then called out Logan Paul, but he did not get Logan Paul. He got, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. He got Paul Heyman. Of course, Logan Paul was not on the show tonight. He was not going to be at the show. He was not advertised for the show. And I'm like, this is your go-home show for Backlash. You're supposed to have Logan Paul there to sell the match with Jey Uso. But Paul Heyman came out. He kept saying, I came here tonight, not to disrespect the World Heavyweight Champion, Jey Uso, but I dragged myself all the way out here tonight to Omaha, Nebraska, because I wanted to say something straight to the face of the World Heavyweight Champion, Jey Uso. So Jey was like to Paul Heyman, well, you have a lot of balls stepping into the ring with me after what you did to my family. So Paul Heyman ended up asking if Jey is going to lecture him about betraying their tribal chief, Roman Reigns. So Jey was like to Paul Heyman, he saw past him from day one. And he warned his cousin about Paul Heyman, as well as CM Punk. Paul Heyman ended up saying to Jay that it's a shame that while he was handing out warnings, he should have warned him about his best friend in the whole world, CM Punk. So the crowd was booing at Paul Heyman, to which Paul Heyman told the crowd to keep their boos to themselves while the mic is in his hand. He ended up saying not one of them had to live what he lived through. He ended up saying that his best friend in the world, CM Punk, put him in a position where he was guaranteed to sabotage. So the crowd ended up chanting for CM Punk. So Paul Heyman then mocked the crowd. He was like, CM Punk, CM Punk. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that they chant his name. They chant CM Punk's name because they don't know what's in the dark heart of that man. He ended up saying that man put him in a position to sabotage his relationship with the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. So Paul Heyman was like, oh, it's time to talk about your cousin, Jay, Roman Reigns. So the crowd started chanting OTC. Paul Heyman was looking all irritated by the chants from the crowd. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he had a dream with his best friend, CM Punk. He ended up saying while Roman was still playing football and not thinking about the wrestling business, he wanted his best friend to overcome all the adversity in his life and be in his corner at WrestleMania. He ended up saying, what did Reigns think he would do? Sell all his secrets to CM Punk? So Paul Heyman ended up saying, why would he do that after building up the bloodline for 5 years? So Paul Heyman ended up saying that he found a stray big dog on the island of irrelevancy and turned him into the tribal chief and the ruler of the WWE universe. He ended up saying they were the undisputed WWE champion for 1,316 days. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that he is not the one who blew it by getting beaten by Cody Rhodes after being distracted by Rollins at WrestleMania last year. He ended up saying that Reigns lost the title, that Paul Heyman spent 5 years of his life building him up to be champion. He ended up saying that Reigns then disappeared and licked his wounds like a big dog. He ended up saying that Roman left Heyman in the hands of Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and the Tongans, Tama Tonga and Tongaloa. He ended up saying that they put him through a table at Madison Square Garden and nearly ended his 40-year career. Heyman ended up saying that Reigns didn't come back to avenge him. He only came back to get his Ula Fala. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that he incredulously ended up saying that he betrayed Roman, who couldn't handle the fact that he wanted his best friend to live his dream. Paul Heyman was like, oh, it's always me who was the scumbag in this situation. And he goes, not this time. So Paul Heyman then ended up screaming. He ended up saying that he is in the right. He then shouted, and you blame me? Screw you, and screw all of you, to which he ended up telling the crowd. So that's classic Paul Heyman there. That's the Paul Heyman that we haven't seen in a while. So the crowd started chanting asshole to Paul Heyman. So Jay ended up asking Paul Heyman if he is okay after that massive blow-up. He then ended up asking Heyman, are you done? He ended up saying to Heyman, what does this all have to do with me? So Paul Heyman ended up saying that he owes Jay an apology and that it has nothing to do with him. He ended up saying not that part, at least. Heyman ended up saying that he didn't come out here to talk about Roman Reigns and CM Punk. Heyman ended up saying that he did come out to talk about Jay, which has everything to do with him. He ended up saying that Jay won the World Heavyweight Championship because he wants it. But the title is all about power and control. Heyman ended up saying that Jay doesn't know how to wield power and control, and that he doesn't understand that leverage. He ended up saying that he thinks yeeting and putting on a great performance is what it takes, But that's not what the title is about. Heyman ended up saying that while Jay needs to be champion and wants to be champion, Seth Rollins has to be a champion. Heyman ended up saying that Seth Rollins has to have that power. He has to have that control. He ended up saying that Braun Breaker was stage 1 of their plan. And that stage 2 is the World Heavyweight Championship. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he will give Jay a favor to sign his own death warrant. He ended up saying that he'll let Jay pick the night he loses the World Heavyweight Championship, because Seth Rollins is challenging him for the title. He ended up saying that he pinned Roman at WrestleMania, and he beat Reigns and Punk at Mania. He ended up saying that Jay knows he has earned the shot, and that Jay can pick the time and place. So Paul Heyman ended up going to walk off. Jay then stopped Heyman. Jay ended up asking the crowd to help him out. He ended up saying, "Oh, did Paul Heyman just say anytime, any place, and anywhere for the World Heavyweight Championship against Seth Rollins?" He ended up saying that it's on tonight. 4 letters, 1 word, So pretty much that was basically that. Jay ended up saying that while Paul Heyman was in the corner. He had Paul Heyman in the corner, and Paul Heyman was all freaking out. So that was that. But overall, very good promo to open Monday Night Raw here with Jay and Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman ended up cutting a great promo as always, but it was good. Good promo. And then we saw Paul Heyman as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. He entered the locker room. He ended up finding Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker in there. So Paul Heyman was like to Seth Rollins, "I cannot believe Jay fell for it, and that he wants to have the match for the title tonight." So Rollins ended up asking Paul Heyman to indulge him. And he ended up saying, "I told you so." So Rollins ended up walking off, and it was just Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker there. Seth Rollins, I don't know what the hell he was wearing tonight. It looked like he was wearing pajamas. It looked like he raided Becky's wardrobe again. So Paul Heyman ended up asking Braun Breaker if he understands what is going on. So Heyman ended up telling Breaker that Rollins prepared intently for the main event of WrestleMania. He had seen that Roman Reigns and Punk both lost to Rollins at WrestleMania. He had telling Breaker that Jay made Gunther tap out, but he's being distracted by Logan Paul. So Heyman ended up telling Breaker that Rollins is a sniper and has Jay in his sights. Heyman ended up saying that they'll get handed the keys to the kingdom when the referee hands the World Heavyweight Championship to Seth Rollins. So pretty much that was basically that. Breaker ended up smiling at what Paul Heyman was telling him, and he looked excited, to hopefully see Seth Rollins win the World Heavyweight Championship. And then we had the first match of the night. Penta. He had taken on JD McDonagh. McDonagh was, of course, accompanied by Balor and Carlito. And this was a very good match here. Very entertaining match. Match got underway. Penta, of course, did the Cero Miedo to McDonagh. McDonagh then ended up kicking Penta, and he had pinned a headlock takeover. Penta then grapevine McDonagh's head. McDonagh ended up getting out of that. McDonagh then grabbed Penta, but Penta ended up elbowing McDonagh. McDonagh then ended up hitting a drop toe hold, and he tried to go for a leg drop to Penta, but Penta moved out of the way. McDonagh ended up taking Penta down, and he had pinned a standing moonsault, to which he ended up going for the cover, and Penta ended up kicking out. McDonagh then put Penta in the corner, and he chopped at Penta's chest. Penta then ended up chopping McDonagh back, and Penta started chopping away again at McDonagh. McDonagh tried to fight back, but Penta kept the momentum going. Penta ended up kicking McDonagh in his legs, and he ended up going for a cover, to which McDonagh kicked out. Penta then ended up sending McDonagh to the corner, but Penta ended up running into a boot from McDonagh. McDonagh then ended up running Penta over with a running elbow to his jaw. Penta then fought back with an elbow, and he kicked McDonagh in the face. Penta then put McDonagh on the top rope, and he chopped away at McDonagh's chest. So McDonagh then knocked Penta to the apron. Penta fought back with a kick to McDonagh, and Balor quickly distracted Penta, which led to McDonagh to take advantage of the distraction. He then ended up hitting the Death Valley driver to Penta on the apron, which was crazy. It was a good spot there. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, McDonagh was in control of the match. He ended up getting Penta in the Tree of Woe. McDonagh ended up going for a basement drop kick, but he ended up sliding crotch first into the ring post because Penta ended up sitting up. Penta then ended up hitting a handstand slingshot drop kick to McDonagh's head, and he pulled him into the ring. He ended up going for the cover, to which McDonagh ended up kicking out. He had later on Balor ended up getting on the apron to distract the ref. Carlito ended up grabbing Penta's mask, but Penta kicked Carlito away. Penta then ended up sending McDonagh out of the ring by Carlito. Penta came off the top rope with a crossbody block to the floor, and he landed on both McDonagh and Carlito. Penta then got McDonagh back into the ring. Balor then ended up ripping Penta off the apron, and he threw him into the ring. But the referee ended up catching Balor. So we had the ref end up ejecting Balor and Carlito from ringside. And we also had Chad Gable out there because Penta ended up going to the top rope. Chad Gable ended up grabbing Penta's leg. Penta ended up knocking Gable away. And Penta ducked the clothesline from McDonagh. And Penta ended up hitting a tope con hilo on Gable. McDonagh then caught Penta with a jawbreaker. He ended up going up to the top rope. Penta then avoided the moonsault by McDonagh. Penta came back and ended up hitting the Mexican Destroyer on McDonagh. He went for the cover, and there you go. Penta ended up winning the match. Overall, very good match this was. Both Penta and McDonagh gave it all they got, and, it was back and forth between the both of them. Very enjoyable match. And then we saw Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller was with Adam Pearce. Austin Theory then walked up. Grayson Waller ended up offering his match to Austin Theory. So Pearce ended up giving the match to Austin Theory instead. Theory didn't know who was going to face him. So Waller was like to Theory, "It's a surprise." So Theory looked all confused. He was like, "What?" So that was that. And then we had the match. Austin Theory. He ended up taking on Sheamus. Sheamus ended up returning to Monday Night Raw tonight. And as Sheamus made his way out, Austin Theory was unhappy with Grayson Waller. That Grayson Waller ended up tricking him into having the match with Sheamus. So the match got underway. Sheamus ended up slinging Austin Theory down. Theory started to fight back with some right hands, but Sheamus ended up fighting out of the corner. Sheamus ended up crushing Theory with some strikes, and he sent Theory into the opposite corner. Theory ended up slingshotting over Sheamus, and he delivered a drop kick. Theory started taunting the crowd, and he then turned into a hammer throw from Sheamus. Sheamus ended up reversing the whip, and he ended up hitting an Irish Curse backbreaker to Theory. Sheamus then ended up hitting a second Irish Curse, and he grabbed Theory's legs for the cloverleaf, but Theory ended up fighting out of that. Sheamus then ended up stomping on Theory's midsection, and he applied the cloverleaf. He finally got the cloverleaf locked in on Theory. Theory ended up getting to the bottom rope, and he got out of the ring in front of Grayson Waller. Sheamus then came off the top rope with a diving clothesline on Theory. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Theory ended up kicking Sheamus in the face, but that just fired up Sheamus. Sheamus ended up hitting a tilt-a-whirl power slam to Theory. Theory rolled to the apron. Sheamus then grabbed Theory. Theory then snapped Sheamus off the top rope, and he ended up going for a Rolling Thunder dropkick, but Sheamus countered that with a knee to Theory's jaw. So Sheamus went for the cover. Theory kicked out. Sheamus then looked at Grayson Waller as he headed to the top rope. So we had Theory end up avoiding a diving clothesline from Sheamus, and he sent Sheamus into the ring post, shoulder first. Theory then kicked Sheamus, and he ended up hitting a Rolling Thunder blockbuster. He ended up going for the cover, to which Sheamus kicked out. Sheamus then grabbed Theory, and he crushed Theory's chest with the 10 beats of the Bodhrán, and Sheamus delivered 14 beats of the Bodhrán to Theory. So Sheamus got fired up, and he delivered the Brogue Kick to Theory. Sheamus went for the cover, and there you go. Sheamus ended up winning the match. So post-match, we saw both Grayson Waller and Austin Theory got into a little argument, and that was basically that. But they're teasing, once again, Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, possibility of breaking up, which that's going to possibly happen. And Sheamus returning, it was great. Sheamus never has a bad match. He always puts on banger matches, and this match was a banger. So great to see Sheamus back. And then it was announced that Dominic Mysterio will defend the Intercontinental Championship against Penta this Saturday at Backlash. There you go. It's confirmed. And then we saw JD McDonagh. He was in the Judgment Day clubhouse. McDonagh was not happy that Chad Gable got involved in the match. And it was only in the Judgment Day clubhouse, Balor, McDonagh, Dominic, and Carlito, Raquel Rodriguez. Liv Morgan was not there because Liv Morgan is promoting a film that she is doing. Not a big film. I think it's like some sort of direct-to-streaming film. Because they were hyping this up. Oh, well, Liv Morgan's going to be in a big film. And then when it was revealed, I'm like, okay, it's not, a Marvel film or a DC film, which that would have benefited Liv Morgan. It was some direct-to-streaming movie from what I saw. So AJ Styles walked in. He ended up saying that it doesn't matter who wins that Backlash. And he's coming for the which he botched the name. Styles botched the name. He ended up saying that he's so excited and flustered. He ended up saying they call him an old man. He then ended up saying that he's coming for the Intercontinental Championship. So Dominic didn't realize that being a champion would be this hard. He ended up telling Balor to handle Styles since they have a history. So Balor ended up asking Dominic if his role is to clean up his messes. But Balor was like, oh, I'll take care of it. And pretty much that was that. And then we saw Chad Gable. Chad Gable was backstage, and he was furious that his nose got bloodied up by Penta. The New Day, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, the World Tag Team Champions, walked up to Gable. They ended up saying that they saw the opportunities that are coming to the War Raiders, whom they destroyed at WrestleMania. He ended up saying that he needs to come back to American made. And pretty much that was that. Becky Lynch walked through Chad Gable and the New Day, and she headed in the direction to the ring. And then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Becky Lynch was in the ring. Another awful promo from Becky here tonight. God, can we stop giving Becky Lynch a mic? Awful promo from her. I like Becky in the ring. She is good, but terrible on the mic. So Becky ended up saying that she's back in Omaha, and she can't believe that the crowd are saying that she sucks. So Becky was like, oh, they treat me like the bad guy, but I'm the victim here. She was like, okay, I took out Bayley, but everyone lost their minds when I walked down the ramp at WrestleMania. She ended up seeing that one woman was crying, and no one cared where Bayley was. And she ended up calling Bayley garbage. Becky ended up saying that she should be thanked for taking out the garbage. And she also took out the recycling. And that's what Lyra Valkyria is. She ended up saying that she's less offensive than actual garbage. But she's still garbage. She ended up saying that Lyra's attitude is bad. And she doesn't have a dream or make history if it's not for her, for Becky Lynch. And that she wouldn't even have a fiance. So Lyra Valkyria ended up coming out, the Women's Intercontinental Champion. Lyra ended up saying that Becky is the queen of recycling because she's been recycling the same shtick for years. She ended up saying that Becky had nothing to do with her success. Lyra ended up saying that Becky didn't make her and that she went on a holiday and everyone got better. Lyra ended up saying that she made history on her own. Lyra ended up saying that Becky has said that the Women's Intercontinental Championship needs her, and that she has defended it more than Becky has shown up for work. She ended up saying that Becky shattered the glass ceiling for women, but she left broken glass for the rest of them. So Becky ended up admitting that everyone had a great year while she was gone, and that's because they couldn't compare to her. She ended up saying that she didn't help anybody, but she doesn't like anyone, and that her job is to beat everybody. She ended up saying that Sports Illustrated ended up saying that she's the best of all time, and that Lyra will always be the moment after the moment. So Lyra then ended up running through Becky's accomplishments. You know, Becky being the first ever SmackDown Women's Champion and main eventing WrestleMania. Lyra ended up going on to say that Becky was the first Women's Intercontinental Champion. But then she ended up saying, oh, that was me. So Lyra ended up saying that as long as I'm here, Becky will be in second place. So Becky ended up going for a cheap shot. Lyra ended up spin kicking Becky down. Lyra ended up slamming Becky. And both Lyra and Becky ended up getting into a brawl. Of course, refs and officials ended up running down to separate the both of them. Becky then got on the mic and she kept shouting about disrespect. But Lyra ended up running in. Lyra ended up getting out of a manhandle slam by Becky. And Lyra ended up hitting the Nightwing, laying out Becky. And pretty much that was basically that. But this whole segment was awful. Absolutely awful. Becky, in my opinion, is a awful promo. You saw it, last week, and you saw it again tonight. I'm like, who keeps handing Becky a mic? Please, stop. And then we have Roxanne Perez. She ended up taking on Iyo Sky, the Women's World Champion. Very good, entertaining match this was. So, the match got underway. Both women ended up locking up. Iyo ended up hooking a side headlock on Roxanne. Roxanne ended up whipping Iyo off. Iyo then connected with a shoulder tackle to Roxanne. Iyo ended up hitting the ropes. She ducked the clothesline from Roxanne. She ended up sending Roxanne Perez into the ropes. Perez then responded with a slap to Iyo's face. Perez then ducked the clothesline from Iyo. She got out of the ring as Iyo started chasing her. Perez ended up getting in the ring. She ended up going for a headset to take over to Iyo, but Iyo ended up flipping through that. Iyo then drop kicked Perez out of the ring. Iyo ended up hitting the ropes, but Perez got in, and she ended up drop kicking Iyo in her knees. Perez then attacked Iyo's knees, but Iyo ended up knocking Perez away. Perez ended up putting Iyo on the apron, and Perez ended up hitting a dragon screw over the ropes to Iyo. Perez then ended up taking Iyo out with a suicide dive. She then got Iyo back into the ring. Iyo then ended up delivering a suicide dive to Perez. Iyo ended up getting Perez in the ring. She ended up going for a springboard maneuver, but Perez ended up taking Iyo down. Perez then attacked Iyo's leg as Iyo ended up falling out of the ring. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Iyo was in control of the match. She ended up hitting an arm drag to Perez off the top rope. Both Perez and Iyo were trading strikes from their knees. Iyo ended up rocking Perez with an uppercut. Iyo ended up kicking Perez in the head. She ended up going for the cover, to which Perez ended up kicking out. Iyo ended up connecting with a missile drop kick. She then set up for the bullet train to Perez, but Iyo's knee ended up giving out. Perez took advantage of Iyo's knee, ended up giving out, and she ended up going for a wheelbarrow roll-up, but Iyo ended up rolling through, and she delivered double stomps to Perez's midsection. She went for the cover, to which Perez kicked out. Iyo then ended up hitting a German suplex to Perez, and she rolled through for a second German suplex. Perez countered that into a swinging back suplex to Iyo. Iyo ended up connecting with a double arm backbreaker. Iyo ended up going to the top rope for the over the moonsault, but she ended up landing on her feet because Perez ended up moving out of the way. So, in the end, we had both Perez and Iyo. They were doing counter pinfall after counter pinfall, which I hate when they do that, because it just looks stupid in my opinion, where they go for a cover, then they kick out, they go for another cover, then they go for another cover. Stupid. They were trading pins. Iyo eventually ended up powering Perez down, and she ended up getting the 3 count. So there you go. Iyo ended up winning the match. Post-match, Roxanne Perez was furious, and she ended up watching Iyo celebrate her victory. Perez then turned Iyo around, and Perez ended up extending her hand for Iyo to shake. Iyo then shook Perez's hand and showed, some respect. Perez then walked off, and then all of a sudden, Julia ended up attacking Iyo from behind. Perez then ended up smiling, so it was a setup. So Perez got back into the ring. Julia ended up holding Iyo up, and Perez ended up kicking Iyo in her skull. Julia then ended up stomping Iyo down. Julia ended up holding Iyo up again, and Perez ended up kicking Iyo in the face. And Perez and Julia ended up posing over Iyo, and that was basically that. But overall, very good match it was from Roxanne Perez and Iyo here. And then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had Otis. He went one-on-one with Rusev. Rusev, this is his in-ring return on Monday Night Raw, and his in-ring return in WWE. And this was a squash match here. And Rusev, he looked good here. It was good to see him competing again in the ring after, when he was in AEW, he was kept off TV doing nothing because Tony Khan did not know what to do with him. So, match got on the way. Both Otis and Rusev ended up staring at each other. Both guys locked up. And we had them lock up again. And neither of them could gain an advantage. They locked up once again. Rusev kneed Otis in his midsection. Rusev started punching and stopping Otis down the corner. Otis ended up reversing a whip into the opposite corner, but Rusev popped out with a clothesline to Otis. So Otis ended up rocking Rusev with a pair of strikes. Rusev didn't go down, so the strikes did nothing to him. Otis then hit the ropes. Rusev ended up wiping Otis out with a rolling wheel kick. So at the end of the match, we had Rusev end up applying the accolade on Otis. He had no choice. Otis had no choice but to tap out. So Rusev ended up winning the match. So it confirms that Rusev is a heel. Because when we saw him 2 weeks ago, when he made his return to WWE, we were like, all right, is he a heel or a babyface? So it pretty much confirms that Rusev here, by what we saw here with Otis, is a heel. Post-match, Akira Tozawa got in Rusev's face, and he ripped his shirt off. So Rusev backed off. He wanted nothing to do with Tozawa. Tozawa checked on Otis, but Rusev then ran to the ring, and he grabbed Tozawa, and he powerbombed Tozawa onto Otis. Rusev ended up sending Otis into the ring post twice, and he knocked Otis out of the ring. Rusev got Otis back into the ring, and he pinned a run thrust kick to Otis. Rusev then locked the accolade back on Otis. And this is where we saw officials end up running out, and Adam Pearce was out there, and the officials end up pulling the accolade off of Otis that was locked in on Rusev, and that was basically that. But, this was a squash match. This was a advantage match for Rusev, to build him up. But it was good to see Rusev back in the ring, especially in the WWE ring. And then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had the face-to-face between Gunther and Pat McAfee. And Gunther's suspension was lifted. So Adam Pearce was in the ring. Pearce called Pat McAfee into the ring. He then introduced Pat McAfee's opponent at Backlash this Saturday, the ring general, Gunther. So Gunther made his way out. He got into the ring. Pearce ended up saying that they've talked about this all day, and they will not let what happened 2 weeks ago happen again. He ended up saying that the time for talking is done at Backlash. Pearce ended up telling both Gunther and Pat McAfee to keep it professional for tonight. And Pat McAfee ended up saying that he will let Gunther speak first. So Gunther spoke first. He ended up saying that he won't do anything tonight and spoil it for himself. He ended up saying, unlike Pat McAfee and his friend out there, of course he was talking about Michael Cole, Gunther ended up saying that he is a professional. So the crowd started chanting, "You tapped out," to Gunther. So Gunther ended up telling the crowd to shut up, because he'll get to that later. So Pat McAfee spoke. McAfee ended up saying that he heard Gunther talk about being a professional. He ended up saying that his friend Michael Cole is a walking, talking goat. So we had the fans end up giving Michael Cole a chant. And McAfee ended up saying that for 28 years, every single week of his life, except for 3 times, Michael Cole has dedicated himself to traveling the world for his company. He ended up saying 28 years, 52 weeks a year, Michael Cole has earned the right to have an opinion. And McAfee ended up saying that since his opinion pissed Gunther off to the point he had to attack a 60-year-old man, McAfee ended up saying that he will give his opinion on Gunther, stand here right now. He ended up saying that they're in beautiful Omaha. He ended up saying that when he thinks of Nebraska, he thinks of the Cornhuskers. McAfee ended up saying that he can't wait for the Cornhuskers to rise in the fall. He ended up saying right across from the CHI Health Center is a baseball field that has hosted the College Baseball World Series since 1950. McAfee ended up saying that the city is a symbol of working hard and dreams coming true. McAfee ended up saying that dreams is a good word, and he has a lot in common with Gunther. So McAfee ended up saying that even though he is from Pittsburgh and Gunther is from Vienna, they both grew up idolizing the superstars of yesterday in this business, and that they spent hours watching pro wrestling, thinking that's what they were put on this earth to do. So McAfee ended up saying that the problem with Gunther and his dreams is that he's been doing it for 20 years. He ended up saying that Gunther has been a champion for 80% of the time in his WWE career. And he ended up saying that Gunther is jaded, and that this is a job for him. McAfee ended up saying that he is excited to be here, and is jacked up on life. He ended up saying that he thinks of the kids out there like him who dream about getting in the ring and letting assholes like Gunther know that they don't like what he's about. He ended up saying Gunther at the stage is different from the Walter stage. So they're mentioning, Gunther's, name Walter, because that's what we first knew Gunther by, is Walter. So he ended up saying that Gunther doesn't want it anymore, and that he got too comfortable. McAfee ended up saying that it happened with Sami Zayn, it happened with Jey Uso, and he ended up saying on Saturday, he's underestimated him. And McAfee ended up saying that he will show that this version of Gunther is soft. So Gunther was thinking about it, and he ended up asking Pat McAfee, "Oh, did you enjoy your daughter's birthday last week?" Gunther ended up saying that Saturday is a very special day for him, and McAfee got him in the right mood for it. Gunther ended up saying that it's his first match since WrestleMania. He ended up saying that he will be sharp and more focused than ever before. Gunther ended up promising Pat McAfee his full and undivided attention. He ended up saying that bell will ring on Saturday and he will beat McAfee up. Gunther ended up saying that he will maul McAfee and drive his head into the mat, and he will choke McAfee out until he drops like a wet towel. So Gunther was all in McAfee's face, and Gunther ended up saying that on Saturday, only the grace of God can lift his arms off McAfee's throat. So Gunther then shoved McAfee, and he left the ring, and pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was a good promo here from Pat McAfee and Gunther, to sell you the match on Saturday. But this whole feud was just built up in 2 weeks. But overall, the match on Saturday, could be a decent match. I wouldn't call, the match possibly being great, because we all know that Gunther is going to beat McAfee. So it'll be probably a decent match for what it is. And then they announced what we're going to see next week on Monday Night Raw. We're going to see Finn Balor versus AJ Styles. The War Raiders will take on American Made. And it'll be Iyo Sky and Rhea Ripley team up to take on Roxanne Perez and Julia. Which I knew this was going to, this is where we were going to be headed. Knew it was going to be a tag team match at some point. But that's all confirmed for Monday Night Raw next week. Main event. Seth Rollins versus Jey Uso. This was for the World Heavyweight Championship. Good match this was. Good main event. Match got underway. Both guys locked up. Rollins ended up taking Jey down. He ended up going for the cover, to which Jey kicked out. So both guys locked up again. Rollins applied a side headlock on Jay. Jay ended up whipping Rollins off. Rollins ended up responding with a shoulder tackle to Jay. Both guys started trading covers. Rollins ducked the enziguri from Jay. Rollins was lying across the top rope. He then got down and he taunted Jay. Jay then laid Rollins out with a right hand, stunning Rollins. Rollins got up and shoved Jay. Jay shoved Rollins back, and they got into, a shoving match here. So then, after that, they started exchanging strikes to each other. Rollins ended up kicking Jay in his midsection. He ended up going for a stomp, but Jay ended up avoiding that. Rollins ended up going for the pedigree. Jay ended up getting out of that. Rollins then ended up bailing from the ring to avoid a super kick by Jay. So we had Rollins end up calmly getting back into the ring, and he ended up kicking Jay in his midsection. He then started punching and stomping Jay down. Rollins then put Jay in the corner and started stomping him down. And Paul Heyman was singing Rollins' theme music at ringside, which was funny. Of course, you have Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker out there. Rollins then ended up grabbing Jay, and he ended up saying to Jay, "Oh, you're not at my level." Rollins then ended up sending Jay into the ropes. Jay then ducked the clothesline from Rollins, and he started punching Rollins. Jay caught Rollins with an enziguri, and he clotheslined Rollins out of the ring. He then ended up hitting a suicide dive, which knocked Rollins over the commentary table, which was great. And then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Rollins was in control of the match. He ended up hitting a running forearm in the corner to Jay. Jay ended up blocking a right hand from Rollins. He started punching Rollins back. Rollins ended up cruelly kicking Jay and put him in the corner. He started unloading on Jay in the corner. Rollins put Jay on the top rope, and he chopped at Jay's chest. Rollins was sent up for a superplex, but Jay ended up fighting Rollins off. Jay ended up leaping, but Rollins ended up ducking. Jay ended up hitting the ropes, and both guys took each other out with stereo cross body blocks. So both guys were down. Jay then rocked Rollins with some right hands. He then connected with a Samoan drop to Rollins. Jay ended up catching Rollins with a running hip attack. He ended up going for the cover, to which Rollins kicked out. You had Jay ended up grabbing Rollins as he tried to get into the ring. Rollins kicked Jay into the barricade, and he hit the ropes for a suicide dive. Rollins got Jay into the ring. He ended up going for a springboard knee, but Jay ended up super kicking Rollins out of midair. So Jay ended up going for the cover, and Rollins ended up kicking out. Rollins was shown bleeding from the spot where he went over the commentary table. So Rollins ended up hitting a buckle bomb. He ended up going to the top rope. Jay ended up rolling to avoid the frog splash. And this was a good spot here. Jay ended up hitting the ropes. He ended up going for the spear, but Rollins countered the spear with the pedigree. And Rollins ended up going for the cover, and Jay kicked out. And the crowd was chanting, "Holy shit." I mean, that was a good spot there, like I said. Jay hitting that spear, Rollins countering that into the pedigree. Good stuff. So Rollins sized Jay up. Jay ended up avoiding a stomp, and he applied the sleeper hold on Rollins. Rollins fought out of the sleeper hold, and he pulled Jay off. Jay then ducked the clothesline from Rollins, and he delivered a spear to Rollins. So Jay ended up going for the cover. Rollins kicked out. You had Rollins end up doing the superplex, hitting the superplex to Jay, because Braun Breaker ended up grabbing Jay's leg. Jay then ended up kicking Breaker away. So Rollins then used that distraction to hit the superplex, and he rolled into a Falcon Arrow. Rollins then connected with the stomp to Jay. So Rollins went for the cover, and Jay kicked out. So we had Sami Zayn end up coming out. Braun Breaker headed to the aisleway, but Sami Zayn came out of the crowd and attacked Breaker. Sami Zayn ended up sending Breaker into the ring post. Jay then ended up hitting Rollins with a super kick and also the spear. Jay then went to the top, and he delivered the Uso splash onto Rollins. He ended up going for the cover, and Rollins kicked out, which was crazy. And Sami Zayn couldn't believe that Rollins kicked out of that. And it was shown that Sami Zayn's ribs were taped up after what happened last week. We had Braun Breaker then delivering a spear to Sami Zayn at ringside. So, as Jay checked on Sami on the outside, Paul Heyman distracted the ref. And that led to Breaker spearing Jey Uso on the outside. The camera ended up missing Breaker hitting the spear to Jay. So we had to see it on the replay. So Rollins got Jey Uso in the ring, and he had pinned the stomp to Jay. And then all of a sudden, CM Punk ended up coming out. Punk had a steel chair in hand. Punk then threw the chair into Breaker's face, and he got into the ring. And Punk started beating Rollins with the steel chair. Breaker then tried to get into the ring, but Punk ended up beating Breaker in the back with the chair. Punk then stood tall in the ring with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso as Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Paul Heyman ended up retreating up the aisleway. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. The match ended in a no contest because we didn't see the ref call for the bell. So, no contest the match ended in. But overall, Monday Night Raw, good show it was tonight. And, it was a good main event between Jey Uso and Seth Rollins here. Like I said, even though the match ended in no contest, it was a good match. But anyway, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I have a movie review of Sinners. I pre-recorded it earlier today, which I saw the film today. So that'll be the next video after this. It will be uploaded later on today. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you all later.